Well, it's good to be here and always to share the stage with Raj and Kip. I've known him for many, many years, and it's what an unbelievable movement that they pulled together here. And what I want to do is share a little bit. Last time I was here for the CEO Summit, we talked about our nonprofit Reardon Clinic and how we've really ended sepsis, which is the #1 killer in hospitals around the planet. And it's been fun being an investor in companies that are really going out and solving some of the biggest challenges on the planet, things that government have not been able to do, like my buddy Cesar Martinell at Barcelona Housing Systems. We're getting rid of all the fertilizer on the planet through Barrett Ersich's company, Holganics. And we're really excited about kind of the stuff we're doing with early childhood education with Cynthia Kay's company right there, Alive Studios. But hey, I want to talk about scaling up. And here's the challenge. 11,000 startups every hour in the world. We're not hurting for new companies. And in the US, 76% of those companies never get beyond the entrepreneur as the sole employee. And I would maintain many of those companies are overstaffed. And so what we're really trying to do is focus on the scale-ups. And Scott has done a great job, and he knows that it's really required two things, discipline and focus. As he's taken that company when they started in 2003 to, I just checked this morning, a market cap of $25 billion. And what's cool is both Scott and Mike have been able to hold on to 75% of that company. I'm going to come back to why their technology is critical to what it is that we're going to be talking about here this morning. What I also love is those guys not only have done well financially, but they have been consistently named the best place to work in Australia. Last year, #2 to Salesforce.com. And so what I want to do is really get us involved in 4 conversations. And we're going to look around 4 practical ideas that we can learn from the theme here from nature. And so we're going to look at these 4. #1, what is it that the unicorns have figured out, those that scale to $1 billion quick? #2, what is their real approach to strategy that we can learn from nature? #3, how have nature structured in order to scale? And #4, what really is the key, again, we can learn from nature, to make a ton of money? And so let's get started on that. And to do it, I want to go back to some work that we're doing in a second nonprofit that I'm involved in, both co-founder as chair, and that's Geoversity. So if we could, let's run the video.
Geoversity, it's a diverse group of people that are all gathered here in a very intimate conversational setting, learning from each other, really exercising their creativity, learning from the best entrepreneurs in the business, and being inspired by this environment that you really don't find anywhere else.
We're working with James Cameron on making the world of Avatar come alive. I need to understand the system of relations between humans and nature.
And the idea here is to teach business strategy and innovation from learnings we have from nature, and also to connect people to nature who are in business, so both for sustainability, for the environment, but also to help them be better at their jobs where they are.
Data from the Furmanian Institute project $1.3 trillion of GDP from biomimicry and 1 million US jobs over the next 10 years.
Nature is the ultimate innovator. Life has been experimenting for 3 billion years. No one has more time, more experience innovating than life.
Cool. And so what I want to do, I want to introduce a couple of the teammates that we've got here, literally the leading naturalist throughout all of Latin America. He's also a Harvard MBA, so he's our CEO of our 10,000-acre preserve. So if you have a chance over the next couple days, say hello to Leader Sucre. Leader, give him a hand. Thank you so much. And then we were super excited. TJ has built one of the largest solar companies in the world, servicing companies all over the globe. He's been involved with us for many, many years. And this year, now that he's stepped up to chairman of a solar company, he is now CEO of Geoversity and author of Building a Brilliant Tomorrow. So we're both around here, as well as myself. We're going to get together in some of those collisions and gathers tomorrow night around dinner in order to talk more about this. So TJ, thank you guys so much for being here, Leader. Give them a hand as they run off. Thank you, guys. And what's interesting is they mentioned in the video that biomimicry is going to drive over $1 trillion worth of activity. I think what's interesting is just last week they were talking about this new wing is going to revolutionize air transport, and we're finally going back to what it is that we can learn from nature in terms of structuring that. And so I'm also super excited. Tamsin, you're here. Wooly Barker, come on, stand up here and come on up on stage. Give her a hand as she comes on up. She is the professor over at Arizona State University in the biomimicry area. And Tamsin, you know I've said this, you have written literally the single most important book written this century for what it takes for us. No, seriously, in order for us to really scale appropriately. And what she did in this book is she looked at superorganizations, superorganisms that said, look, for billions of years they've been scaling, and it's based on these 5 precepts. Let's cultivate collective intelligence, nurture swarm creativity, rely on distributed leadership, depend on reciprocity and sharing, and compound regenerative growth. And if you heard in the video, we have partnered down in Panama with James Cameron and the Avatar movement and Ubisoft, the big, huge game developers. And one of the things we love about Ubisoft is through gaming, they want to teach our youth fundamental principles. And so we have shared with them Tamsin's fundamental precepts to build into that Avatar game that they're doing with us down in the jungle so that we can begin to teach the next generations these 5 fundamentals that we think are going to be critical to scale. And so, Tamsin, I think you're here all week as well. And so we're looking forward to having you have a chance to meet her as well. Give her another hand as she goes up. Tamsin, thank you so much. And so, let's look at really 4 ideas that we can take from nature. And the first is, what is it that the unicorns have figured out in order to scale? And they know that that is the critical competitive weapon. But where we said last century, we've got to focus on getting the right butts in the right seats. And it's clear you got to get that senior team right. All the unicorns have done one other thing, and that is they have figured out how to get the most brains on their bus. If you want to really think about it, the valuation of Facebook is tied to the 2 billion users and who put up all of those pages and who updates those pages on a daily basis. If you've got 2 billion kind of, in a way, free labor, and I'm guarantee you some of your employees are working harder for Facebook than they are for you, then you can build a rich, fast growth company. And so what I want to do is I want to talk about a couple of mere mortals. And so one of the hottest topics on the planet is how do we eat locally? Very difficult with honey. And so the Anderson family down in the bowels of Australia said, look, we're going to solve this problem. And they created this little device called the Flow. Now, they needed to raise $70,000. In the old days, friends, families, and fools. But instead, they went up on one of these crowdfunding sites, Indiegogo. In 3 hours, they hit their first $1 million in revenue, the fastest any company's ever hit that. By the way, that qualifies you for EO. They then doubled the revenue in the next 11 hours. Normally, it takes you longer to do that than a half a day to $2 million. And when the dust settled, they had sold over $12 million worth of the $600 device to 36,000 people around the globe. Now, what I think is amazing about the story, they've delivered, first of all, on every one of those. They got the value proposition right, which we're going to talk about next. Harvesting honey is easier on the beekeeper and so much easier on the bees. And so by tapping into the crowd, they were able to scale this rapidly. Side note, 2015, Elon Musk won the Innovation Award for the planet for the Tesla. In 2016, this father and son team won it for the Flow. Now, a lot of you think, hey, but I'm doing something a lot more complex than just trying to make it easy to harvest honey. And so let's say you've got a very complex question like this one that Mayo Clinic wanted to put out there to the marketplace. Now, they got 63,000 really smart people. And if you think that that is enough in order to solve the problems of today's planet, that is your fundamental mistake. What they did instead is they put up this idea to Kaggle, which, by the way, was bought recently by Google. And with 12 hours left, 205 teams had decided to put up a solution to this very challenging question for a mere $8,000. Joan Soda said, hey, why should we hire folks to design our labels when we can put it out to the crowd? I had written this 3rd book, and I said, you know what, I'm going to put it out to the crowd. And they said, Verne, we know you think you're the growth guy, but your baby is both ugly and stupid. And so they came back, and it was really the crowd that gave us this book that's won 8 international awards. And so the first place I want you to do is tap into your employees. And so John Laughlin has the 1% Better box. In Raj's upcoming book is going to be my partner, John Ratliff, who, when he was scaling Appletree at 650 employees, he put in a system called Idea Flash on Salesforce.com, and he was able to mine 10,000 suggestions every 90 days from his own team. So here's your first challenge question. What are you doing to go beyond the brains of your team, your own employees, and out to the community and the broader planet in order to power your business? Go. See what you come up with. This is swarm intelligence. So how do you tap in your employees first? Scott, by the way, at Atlassian, that's what they call FedEx days. So they stop every few months, and for 24 hours, the entire company is allowed to deliver overnight new ideas for the software. What are you doing to tap in to the broader brain power to scale your business? Talk about it at your table. But you did that. But that's what I'm going to mention that. All right. From how many people? All right. One more minute. All right, let me welcome you back. Let me welcome you back. So, by the way, just to start, how many of you have done an Indiegogo or Kickstarter campaign? Yeah, so quite a few. By the way, Tamsin did exactly the same thing. So she wanted to put together a workbook around her new ideas. And so she raised $35,000 off a Kickstarter from almost 400 people. That's what technology allows us to do, is to tap into that versus pass the hat with our friends and family. The second area, if we begin to look at strategy, is what can we learn from nature? And here I want to turn to the great Clayton Christensen, who asked to me the most powerful question that was ever popularized, and that is, what is the real job our product and service is to do for the planet, for the world, for our customer? If you want a great video, it's 4 minutes. Watch The Job of a Milkshake on YouTube of Clayton Christensen. And once the company unnamed in the video figured out the job it needed to do for commuters in the morning, were they only then able to improve it and know how to compete against it. And so I want to suggest that there is, in a word, one common job that all of our organizations, our products and services are here to do. And once you can get it boiled down that simply, then you're going to know what to work on a daily and weekly basis. And our clue, again, comes from nature. What I find interesting is there are no straight lines in nature. That was a creation by us humans that I only see on hockey stick projections of startups. That is the real path. And if you look at the rule that nature uses as that river's going from Everest to the ocean, it's simply what? Path of least resistance. To take the easy path. And so, who is the wealthiest person on the planet today? Next to Putin. And that's Jeff Bezos, right? And one of the keys, there's two reasons why. Number one, they obsess on a regular basis. What do we have to do to make it what? Even easier to get something. Hey, they've even looked at packaging. We know that hundreds of people are sent to the hospital every single day opening up that plastic. And they don't need that because there's no reason to display. And so they went out to their suppliers and said, hey, we can put it recyclable cardboard boxes. They're now trying to help out by saying, we'll just do one shipment a week to you instead of shipping to you every single day. And so everything that they do on a weekly basis, and Jeff Wilke's a dear friend of mine, the other Jeff helping run Amazon with Jeff Bezos, they obsess every week on what do we have to do to make it even easier this week for our customers and the planet to move forward. By the way, what's the other reason why Amazon's doing so well? They've now become the #1 search engine. And what's the real reason why we go there to get whatever product we want instead of even going directly to the manufacturer? Because of the reviews. They have gotten millions of people, the crowd, the hive, if you would, the tribe, in order to contribute. And that's what drives these unicorns. I think Alibaba said it well. They could state very simply, our mission is to make it easy to do business with. I want you to go back to the beehive. We're going to make it easier for the bees and the folks harvesting it. And that was their easy, simple value proposition. Here's my buddy Hank Morton, hanging out in Barcelona, Spain, 6,000 miles from where his company is headquartered. Launched 20 years ago, they do one thing. If you want to drive your car down south, you need Mexican auto insurance. They've become the easiest way to buy that, one click. Sebastian, I think you know Hank now that he's there in Barcelona. And he's done this as the kind of global leader in the U.S. in this space with 7 employees and a dog. Now, that is why IKEA did this acquisition, TaskRabbit. So they know the aging population. Let's make it easier to get that home and get it assembled. Now, that's on the product side, but let's now turn internally. And we know that it would be easy to scale if we didn't have to deal with people. We've always kidded entrepreneurs would love their business if they just didn't have employees or customers interrupting the grander visions that they've got. But you've got to deal with it. And most people's view is this, what we call the crazyshit.com company, which is management's at top, everything then rolls downhill to the employees. Yet, with the 6,000 leadership books written every single year, I think you can boil it down quite simply. If the job of our companies and products and services, it's ultimately make somebody's life easier, that of their customer's life easier, then our job as leaders is to make sure that we make our employees' lives easy, not hard. Now, we might suggest that a different 4-letter word than easy is care, as Roz suggested. And so that's exactly what we saw, and you're going to see in Raj's book with John. Not only when he bought these 24 call centers, 650 employees, did he get them better chairs to make their job easier, but he launched an initiative called Dream On that I talked about last time at the CEO Summit, where he began to make the dreams of his employees come true. And so here's your second challenge question. What do you need to do when you go back? Let's start with your employees to make their lives easy. And then if you got a moment, what can you do to make the lives of your customers easy? That's nature's path. Go, take a few minutes. Hey, how are you guys? So what are you guys doing to make things easier? Talking to you. All right. Okay, so, but what do you think is the number one thing the employees would want? It would make their jobs easier. All right. Going back to the idea flash that John Ratliff had put in place. Yeah. Yeah. What's the name of the company? What is it? Shapiro Metals. All right. That's cool. Now, what about on the customer side? Ah. Ah, I love it. Yeah. 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 Yeah, that's cool. So, but Shapiro Metals? All right. Oh, there. Yeah. Yeah. And that's the key. And we really feel like that's one of our number one jobs is spend our time out in the field, talking to customers, talking to employees, and figuring it out. Okay, cool. I love that Herb Kelleher question that he was asked one time. Yeah. He said, how do you take care of your customers? And he said, I take care of my employees take care of my customers. Yeah, yeah. Good philosophy. Yeah. Yeah, cool. All right. All right, one more minute. One more minute. All right, let me welcome you back. Let me welcome you back. So, you want to talk about making someone's life easy. Through John's Dream On initiative, he actually saved that employee's husband's life. And that allows you to take an industry that averages 200% turnover of employees down to a record-setting 18%. That's engagement. So I'm talking to Shapiro Metal, and you said, hey, first of all, we set a strategy of being the easiest company to do scrap metal business with, and you are actually powering on that. But then when I ask about the employee side, you said the first step is to listen to them. And so you guys are engaging now in those conversations to go on out and find out, what do we have to do in order to make your jobs easier? I can generally tell you a lot of it's driven around technology, as we were talking about at your table. And if you do that, then they're going to make the lives of your customers and yours a lot easier. Let's now look at execution. And here we want to talk about scalable infrastructure. Here's what crushes you. As you arithmetically add people, locations, product lines, you geometrically increase the complexity. It's one of the reasons why the optimum size of a team is 4.6. You see it in escape rooms. And it's one of the reasons why our special forces are organized accordingly, as well as nature. And so I want you to think a little bit about the org chart. It came from this idea that we originally were organizing muscle, might, if you would, and so it made sense that our org chart mirrored this skeletal system we've got. It's pretty efficient in terms of organizing muscle, the head, the shoulders, the arms, legs, fingers, and toes. By the way, there's the real org chart. Just having some fun. By the way, I love this one for big companies. Chief Idea Killer, VP of Stay the Course. Finally, Manager of New Growth Ideas, vacant. We even know it's often driven by personality, this famous org chart. It was put together in Silicon Valley. But the reality is we're not using our backs, we're using our brains. We moved from muscle to mind, but our org charts didn't change. And form and function must match, as we've learned from nature. And so we call it the agile scale-up. Remember the startup team, and then sales wanted their own office, and accounting wanted their own office, and then began to open up locations closer to customers and organizing around product groups and service groups. And the reality is, this is the real org chart of the 21st century. If we're going to do brain work, let's organize like the brain, a large nodal networked organization. And again, all of the unicorns look exactly like this. If you look at Airbnb, Uber, Lyft, Facebook, Google, the rest. In fact, what they've done is they've drawn the rest of us into their sphere of organization. And so many of you guys, many years ago, we became big fans of this book, Reinventing Organizations. By the way, if you haven't read it, skip the Ford. I don't know what happened with Ken in writing that thing. Part 1 is a bunch of mumbo-jumbo theory, which really turned people off from what are very important ideas in Part 2. So go right to Part 2, and you're going to read about real companies that have been doing this for years, including this major healthcare company called Butzarg that started out in the Netherlands with 4 nurses, boss, and 3 others. Today, 14,000 nurses in one of the areas that's toughest to recruit and retain. They're now operating from China, across Germany, Netherlands, obviously, and they're in the United States. And with this kind of staffing, they only have 50 people you would call a leader manager inside the entire organization. Yet, with the $1 trillion coach business book that came out this past week by Eric Schmidt, they do have a handful of coaches. This is what they look like in the 21st century. You don't think you can do this on the other side of the planet? The article, cover story, Harvard Business Review, November, since I saw many of you at the CEO Summit, featured this Chinese-based company, Haier, the largest white goods manufacturer on the planet, that had 74,000 employees. And by the way, I always tell you how many middle managers you have. You divide by 7. They happen to get rid of all 10,000 middle managers, and they organized the rest of the employees into 4,000 micro enterprises. Look, nobody wants managed in the 21st century. This is your manager. I need coached, but I have a lot greater span of control with that. And so that's the agile scale-up. We even saw it in Team of Teams, how the military said, hey, we're fighting a whole different war. And so General McChrystal had to get rid of the command and control style so we could get on top of that. But I want to talk to us mere mortals. I named this the #1 business book. This is one of my jobs as the venture columnist at Fortune magazine, the #1 business book of 2018. And it's by one of us, Ron Lovett. Ron rolled up the private security business across Canada into 1,500 private security guards, and you could only count among the manager's leaders 8 people, including Ron. By the way, last year he exited for 24 times earnings. And so this book, Outrageous Empowerment, How to Give Employees Their Brains Back to me, is the blueprint for the kind of organizational change we need to make in the 21st century. Take a moment and talk a little bit about maybe we ought to be organizing slightly different. If you look at hives and that of nature, there is not a whole bunch of middle management. As you said, one of the key precepts, Tamsin, is distributed, democratized leadership. Take a moment and talk about that. Go. Oh, guess what? Guess what? Hold on. I'm out of time. Hold on. I'm out of time. We're going to hold that conversation. Let me wrap up. Hold on. So, there is the technology. Why is Scott's company worth $25 billion? Because he created the electronic pheromones that are necessary for this distributed leadership and collective intelligence of the swarm to work. It is a whole new way for modern teams to work. And so that is the key. Last cash, wrap up. If you want to make a ton of money, that's 2,000 pounds, $1 million. You got to give away 200. I first learned that from Robert Kiyosaki, then Adam Grant and Give and Take, but I really learned about money from someone that you're going to have a chance to hear from, and that was Lynn Twist. She was the one who said, look, money is like water, and if you let it go stagnant, it will kill you. You have to keep it flowing. So let me wrap. 4 ideas. Number 1, unicorns, they take advantage of swarm tech intelligence. Number 2, what is the approach? It's always the easy path. That's all you need to focus on a daily and weekly basis. Number 3, how do you structure? Through distributed leadership. And number 4, you want to make a ton of money, give first. Good luck out there. Thank you.